Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that your entire country is no longer ruled by a king, not by an emperor, but by a company. A company with shareholders. A company that had its own army, signed treaties, collected taxes, overthrew kings, and controlled the lives of millions of people. It sounds like the plot of a movie, but this actually happened. For nearly a century, one private company became the most powerful force in India. The question is, how? How did a group of businessmen from a tiny island thousands of kilometers away succeed where some of history's greatest empires had struggled? They didn't arrive with massive armies or thousands of warships. They came carrying spices, silk, and promises of friendship. So how did trade turn into conquest? The answer begins with one of the greatest deceptions in history. At the beginning of the 17th century, Europe had developed an obsession with India. Indian spices were more valuable than gold in many parts of Europe. Pepper, cinnamon, cloves, silk, cotton, and fine textiles could be bought cheaply in Asia and sold for enormous profits back home. Whoever controlled this trade would become unimaginably rich. Seeing this opportunity, a group of English merchants formed the East India Company in the year 1600. Their mission seemed simple: buy goods, sell them in Europe, and make money, nothing more. But their first destination wasn't India. They tried to establish themselves in Indonesia, only to be crushed by the powerful Dutch traders who already dominated the spice trade. Defeated and running out of options, the company searched for another opportunity. That's when they looked toward India, a land famous not only for its wealth, but also for being one of the richest civilizations on Earth. In 1608, an English ship sailed into the port of Surat. At that time, much of India was ruled by the mighty Mughal Empire under Emperor Jahangir. The English requested permission to trade. The answer wasn't what they had hoped for. Jahangir wasn't eager to give foreign merchants free access to his empire. For most traders, that would have been the end of the story. But the East India Company wasn't like most traders. Instead of giving up, they changed their strategy completely. They stopped behaving like conquerors. They behaved like guests. They brought expensive gifts from Europe, learned local customs, built friendships with influential nobles, and patiently waited for opportunities. Slowly, they established small trading factories along India's coastline. To everyone watching, they looked harmless, just another group of merchants trying to earn a living. But appearances can be dangerously misleading. Every warehouse they built became a small fortress. Every trading post became a future military base. Every business agreement gave them another foothold inside India. While Indian rulers believed they were welcoming traders, they were unknowingly opening the gates to something much bigger. Year after year, the company's ships sailed back to England, carrying spices, silk, cotton, and precious goods worth fortunes. The profits were extraordinary. Yet something changed inside the minds of the company's directors. They asked a simple question: why make money by buying from India, when they could make even more by controlling India? That single idea changed history forever. The company began recruiting soldiers, not thousands of English soldiers, but Indians themselves. They trained private armies, built stronger forts, and invested their growing profits into military power. Slowly, a trading company was transforming into a political force. Then history handed them the perfect opportunity. In 1707, Emperor Aurangzeb died. The Mughal Empire, once one of the strongest empires in the world, began to weaken. Powerful governors declared themselves independent. Regional kingdoms fought each other for territory. Marathas expanded across India. Nawabs competed for power. The country wasn't defeated by a foreign invasion. It was divided from within. And the East India Company noticed something that would become their greatest weapon. They didn't need to defeat all of India. They only needed Indians to fight Indians. Whenever two rulers went to war, the company quietly offered military support to one side. In exchange, they demanded trading rights, tax exemptions, land, or political influence. Every conflict made the company stronger while making Indian kingdoms weaker. Without firing a single cannon in many cases, they were slowly becoming one of the most powerful players in India. Then came Bengal. At that time, Bengal was one of the richest regions in the world. Its fertile land, thriving ports, and flourishing textile industry made it the economic heart of India. Controlling Bengal meant controlling unimaginable wealth. The company's ambitions had now grown beyond trade. But Bengal's young Nawab, Siraj-ud-Daulah, saw exactly what was happening. He realized these foreigners were no longer ordinary merchants. They were building forts, recruiting soldiers, ignoring local laws and acting like rulers. Determined to stop them before it was too late, Siraj-ud-Daulah attacked the company's stronghold in Calcutta. For the first time, the East India Company faced a ruler who refused to be manipulated. But instead of preparing only for war, they prepared something far more dangerous: betrayal. Because sometimes, the easiest way to destroy a kingdom is not from outside its walls, but from within. Behind closed doors, the East India Company made its move. Robert Clive, one of the company's most ambitious officers, secretly contacted Mir Jafar, Siraj-ud-Daulah's trusted commander. The offer was simple, but irresistible. Help the company win, and the throne of Bengal would be his. Greed succeeded where armies often failed. On 23 June 1757, the two forces met at the Battle of Plassey. On paper, Siraj-ud-Daulah's army was much larger. Victory should have been certain. But battles aren't always decided by numbers. As the fighting began, Mir Jafar and thousands of his soldiers stood still, refusing to support their own ruler. Siraj-ud-Daulah had been betrayed from within. Within hours, the battle was over. Bengal had fallen not because Britain had the stronger army, but because trust had been broken. It was one of the most important turning points in Indian history. The company immediately placed Mir Jafar on the throne, but he was never the real ruler. He was a puppet, while the East India Company pulled the strings behind the curtain. Bengal's enormous wealth now flowed into the company's treasury. Taxes collected from Indian farmers paid for British soldiers, British expansion, and British profits. A business that had arrived to trade was now ruling one of the richest regions in the world. Success only made the company more ambitious. One kingdom after another came under its influence through wars, alliances, political pressure, or unequal treaties. Some rulers resisted and fought bravely. Others were forced into agreements that slowly stripped away their power. By the early 19th century, the East India Company controlled vast parts of the Indian subcontinent. Think about how unbelievable that is. Millions of people were now living under the rule of a private corporation, but every empire has a breaking point. As the company expanded, resentment grew across India. Heavy taxes crushed farmers. Traditional rulers lost their kingdoms. Local industries suffered, and many Indians believed their customs and rights were being ignored. Anger spread quietly for years, until one spark ignited a fire that the company could no longer control. In 1857, Indian soldiers serving in the company's own army rebelled. The immediate trigger was the introduction of new rifle cartridges that many soldiers believed were greased with cow and pig fat, deeply offensive to both Hindu and Muslim troops. But the cartridges were only the spark. Years of frustration had already filled the air with tension. Soon, the rebellion spread beyond the army. Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi, Nana Sahib, Tatya Tope, Begum Hazrat Mahal, Kunwar Singh, and many others joined the resistance. Across northern and central India, towns and cities erupted in conflict. For months, the company faced the greatest challenge in its history. Although the rebellion was eventually suppressed, it changed everything. The British government reached a painful conclusion. Private company had become too powerful and too dangerous to rule a country as vast as India. In 1858, the British Crown officially took control of India. The East India Company's armies, territories, and powers were transferred to the British government, bringing an end to one of history's most extraordinary corporate empires. When you look back at this story, one fact stands above everything else. The East India Company did not conquer India in a single battle. It advanced step by step, through trade, diplomacy, military strength, and by exploiting divisions among Indian rulers. It arrived asking for permission to do business. It stayed to build an empire. History often teaches us that nations are conquered by powerful armies. But the story of the East India Company tells us something even more unsettling. Sometimes an empire doesn't begin with an invasion. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to S Codex for more mysteries.